They not doing that drill.
Listen to me though, this is barbaric. This is getting you to align with the league. What she is going through, that's the WNBA. Ain't nobody, she's transcending the game. Today's game is what? High pace and threes. Nobody games looks like her.
We saw a white girl in Iowa do it to a bunch of black girls.
Well, of course.
That made it like, oh, that gained my respect.
Where Caitlin Clark notched the first triple-double ever by a WNBA rookie and the first in Fever franchise history.
NBA legends are comparing Caitlin Clark to Steph Curry and saying she could score in the NBA. But has the hype gone too far? Let's break down what's being said and why it's causing such a stir in the basketball world. The basketball world is buzzing with some wild comparisons about Caitlin Clark. Kevin Garnett, an NBA legend, said she could score in an NBA game and compared her to Steph Curry. That's huge. Paul Pierce called her NCAA performance the greatest he's ever seen, boy or girl. And Shaq, he went all out, calling her the best female collegiate player ever. But here's the thing. Are these comparisons fair? Are they putting too much pressure on Clark? And what does this mean for women's basketball? These are big questions we need to talk about. The hype is real, but is it helping or hurting? What do you think about all this? Let's dive into the details and figure out if the NBA media has crossed a line with these shocking comments about Caitlin Clark. Let's take a closer look at these wild comparisons and see if they hold up. Caitlin Clark's been on fire lately, but how does she really stack up against NBA stars? We're about to break it down and you might be surprised by what we find. First off, let's talk about Clark's college career. This girl was an absolute beast on the court. For 4 straight seasons, she led her conference in both scoring and assists. That's not just good, that's phenomenal, but it gets even better. Clark didn't just play well, she shattered NCAA records for 3-pointers. We're talking sharp shooting that had everyone's jaws on the floor. Now, how's she doing in the big leagues? In her first 13 WNBA games, Clark averaged 16.6 assists and 5 rebounds. For a rookie, that's seriously impressive. She's not just keeping up, she's making waves. But here's where things get interesting. NBA legends are starting to take notice, and they're not holding back. Kevin Garnett, on his podcast Ticket and Truth, said about Clark, "If you ain't in Steph Curry shape, that's how she plays, bro. She can shoot and she's got work, bro. She can wiggle." That's some high praise from a guy who knows his basketball. And it's not just KG. Paul Pierce called Clark's NCAA performance the greatest he's ever seen, girl or boy. Shaquille O'Neal went even further, declaring Clark the best female collegiate player ever. These aren't just compliments, they're earth-shaking statements from some of basketball's biggest names. So what's got everyone so hyped? It's Clark's style of play. Her deep 3-pointers are drawing direct comparisons to Steph Curry. She's not afraid to take shots from way beyond the arc, even with defenders all over her, and it's not just her shooting. Clark's got incredible court vision and can make insane one-handed passes out of nowhere. Sound familiar? It should, because that's the kind of play we see from elite NBA playmakers. But here's the thing, we need to be careful with these cross-league comparisons. Sure, Clark's shooting range and playmaking skills are off the charts, but the NBA and WNBA are different beasts. The pace of the game, the physicality, it's not always an apples-to-apples comparison. That said, Clark's proving she can handle the heat in the WNBA. Remember when Kennedy Carter hit her with that flagrant foul? Clark didn't miss a beat. She kept playing with the same intensity, showing she's got the toughness to match her skills. So what do you think? Are these NBA comparisons fair to Clark, or are they putting too much pressure on her? It's a tough call, but one thing's for sure, Caitlin Clark is changing the game. Whether she's the next Steph Curry or something entirely new, she's definitely worth watching. What's your take on all this? Let us know in the comments. Now that we've broken down these wild comparisons, let's talk about what all this attention really means for Caitlin Clark and women's basketball. Is this media spotlight a blessing or a curse? You might be surprised by the answer. First off, let's look at the good stuff. All this buzz around Clark is doing wonders for the WNBA. More people are tuning in to watch games and attendance is up. That's huge. It's not just about Clark, it's showing people that women's basketball can be just as exciting as the men's game. And you know what? It's working. The WNBA is getting more fans, and that's awesome for the sport. But it's not just about the fans. The players are getting some perks too. Thanks to all this attention, the WNBA is stepping up its game. They're improving travel conditions for the players. That might not sound like a big deal, but trust me, it makes a huge difference for these athletes. So far, so good, right? But here's where things get tricky. All this hype puts a ton of pressure on Clark. Think about it. When NBA legends are saying you could score in their league, that's a lot to live up to. What happens if she has a bad game, or if she doesn't meet these sky-high expectations? And let's be real, the pressure isn't just on the court. Every move Clark makes is under a microscope now. That's tough for anyone, let alone a young player just starting her pro career. But here's something to think about. Is Clark getting more attention than other WNBA stars? And how does this compare to the way male NBA players are treated? It's a tough balance. On one hand, it's great to see a WNBA player getting so much recognition. On the other hand, is it fair to the other amazing players in the league? What do you think about all this? Is the media going overboard board with the Caitlin Clark hype, or is this exactly what women's basketball needs to get more recognition? One thing's for sure, Clark's in a unique position. She's got the chance to be a game changer for women's basketball, but with that opportunity comes a whole lot of pressure. How she handles it could shape the future of the WNBA. Now that we've looked at the media hype, let's turn our attention to how fans and the basketball community are reacting. What do they think about all this buzz around Caitlin Clark? Are they buying into the hype, or are they skeptical? The answers might surprise you. Fans have been blowing up social media with their takes on Clark's comparisons to NBA stars. Some are thrilled to see a women's basketball player getting this level of attention. They're saying it's about time the WNBA got its due. But others? They're not so sure. They're worried all this hype might be setting Clark up for failure. One fan tweeted, "Caitlin Clark is amazing, but comparing her to Steph Curry? Come on, that's too much pressure." Another chimed in. Finally, the WNBA is getting the recognition it deserves. Clark is a game changer. But it's not just random fans weighing in. The WNBA community has been rallying around Clark in a big way. Her teammates and opponents alike are showing their support. They know firsthand how talented she is, and they're excited to see her shine. What's really interesting is how this whole situation is sparking a bigger conversation about women's basketball. People are talking about representation, equality, and the future of the sport. Some are asking why it took a player like Clark to get this level of attention. Others are hoping this is just the beginning of more coverage for all WNBA players. Allen Iverson, the NBA legend, had this to say about Clark. "She shoots the blood out of the ball, not just scoring, but getting her teammates involved as well. I think she's so great for the game." That's huge praise from a player of his caliber, and it's getting people talking. Here's where things get really interesting. Clark's impact goes beyond just talk. Her presence has actually boosted WNBA viewership and attendance. People who never paid attention to women's basketball before are tuning in to see what all the fuss is about, and you know what? They're liking what they see. This increased attention is leading to some real changes in the league. We're talking better travel accommodations and more chartered flights for teams. That might not sound exciting, but for WNBA players, it's a big deal. It shows that the league is growing and that people are taking women's basketball seriously. So what do you think about all this? Is the attention on Clark good for women's basketball as a whole? Or is it unfair to other talented players who might not be getting the same spotlight? One thing's for sure, Caitlin Clark has got people talking about women's basketball in a way we haven't seen before. Whether you think the comparisons are fair or not, there's no denying that she's making waves. And who knows, this could be the start of a whole new era for the WNBA. Now that we've seen all the hype and reactions, let's talk about finding the right balance. How can we celebrate talent like Caitlin Clark's without going overboard? It's a tricky situation for sure. On one hand, we want to give props where they're due, but on the other, we don't want to set unrealistic expectations. So what's the solution? First off, let's be real about these NBA comparisons. They're exciting, but are they fair? Maybe instead of saying Clark could score in the NBA, we could focus on her actual achievements in the WNBA. She's averaging 16 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds as a rookie. That's impressive enough on its own, right? What do you think about how the media is handling this? Should they tone it down, or is this exactly what women's basketball needs? Let us know in the comments.